everybody, and welcome to Into the Rift Podcast, Season 1, Episode 8. On this episode, we're going to be talking about Dogmen. I'm your host, Kenny. Joining me is my brother and co-host, Garrett.
Yo, what up?
So with Dogmen, what are they? Most often they're described kind of like an upright walking canine. A better term for everybody to know what most of them look like is just a werewolf.
Just imagine werewolf in London or something like that.
Yep. If you've seen the movie Van Helsing with Hugh Jackman, some of the
Huge jacked
underworld
man.
movies. Yes, with huge jacked man. That's a pretty good depiction of what these things look like. Except that there's no transformation from human to monster. They're just in the monster form the whole time. Some of them have been described as having like black fur. I've seen some of them described as white fur. A couple of them have been like seen as like a dark brown. And I think there's been one case where it was like a blonde color. So you're a golden retriever dog man.
Yeah, as far as like the colors go for them, it seems like all the stories I've heard, it's like most of them are at night anyways. So they can't really distinguish between it being like a dark gray, a dark brown, or like a full just like black.
Right. There's also been a variety of different eye colors reported. So some say they have like bright yellow eyes. Some say they have like a blue eye. Some glowing red or an amber color. And then there's been a couple stories where I've seen where they're just pitch black eyes, kind of like black-eyed kids. Like, there's like no sclera or color, just a inky black void. I've seen a couple stories where they had those kind of eyes too. Most dogmen kind of look like that werewolf, where they have like a German shepherd or wolf-like head that's, 2 to 3 times the size of a German shepherd head. So that's pretty big. They're described as anywhere, when they stand up on their hind legs, anywhere, I think from 6 to 10 feet tall, and weighing anywhere from like 400 or 500 pounds to 1,000 pounds. So very, very, very large, powerful creatures. They're also described as being very muscular. A lot of people say they look like Arnold Schwarzenegger at his prime with like that kind of musculature. So a very built, powerful creature that would be like very scary. Sometimes instead of like a German shepherd style head, sometimes they say they have more of like a hyena like head too. So if you're more familiar with what a gnoll is from like D&D or Baldur's Gate 3, that would be like pretty scary to see. And then a much smaller percentage of dogmen, they're different from like the typical dogman.
Is that the type free that's more like primate, kind of like a baboon man?
Yes. So Vic Cunliffe from Dogman Encounters Radio has a different classification of them called Type 3 Dogman. It's more like a combination, like if you have on a spectrum where Sasquatch is on one end and the Dogman is on the other, they're more in the middle. So they have more of a hominid appearance. They don't have like the haunches like a canine would. They have more of like a hominid-like legs, more of a hominid appearing body, but they have almost more like a baboonish
Imagine like a
head.
bodybuilder furry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a big elongated
a big
snout.
yoked up freaking furry.
Yeah, that's kind of what that is. Except this one could actually, I don't know which one I'd be more afraid to run into, but
depends on the setting.
It does.
Driving in your car and you see one of those, scary, not that bad. Walking into a restroom at a convention center and seeing one of them shirtless standing in front of the stall with the door open would be pretty scary.
Yes, it would be.
Yeah.
Also, you want to avoid any ball pit.
Those who understand. Those who do not, don't Google.
Exactly.
Disgusting.
Dogmen, there's been reports of them all over. Most reports occur in North America, but they can be found worldwide. Most of the time they are in more rural areas. However, that's not the only places they're seen. Some of them are seen like in cities. Like there's been a couple cases seen like in Cincinnati, Ohio. There's been several seen in larger cities where you really wouldn't think they'd be in there. There's been a case where a sighting in Indianapolis.
Yeah, Hagerstown, Maryland. I saw one, there was a report in Morgantown, West Virginia.
Yeah, there's been a couple cases in or around Chicago. There's been a case reported in Omaha. So these things tend to be more in a rural area, but doesn't have to be. It can also be in major cities too, which is crazy.
Just a big furry hooked on that freaking PCP.
Okay, let's get into some stories of Dogmen. So this story took place in Burnett County, Wisconsin. The story will also be linked down in the show notes. It comes from Dogman Encounters. So definitely check it out if you want to read more about Dogmen. I'm a skeptic of the supernatural, but I believe anything is possible. I won't discount supernatural occurrences if I can't find a logical explanation for them. I've experienced a few incidents I couldn't explain, but I'm going to tell you about the one that freaked me out the most, though. I live in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. A lot of people in the cities have cabins in either northern Minnesota or rural Wisconsin. Our cabin was in rural Wisconsin, in a small town called Danbury. The cabin is on Long Lake, at the very end of Long Lake Road. Along with the cabin came almost an acre of land covered by thick forest. We carved a trail through the land for ATVs and whatnot, so the scene is set. Now about me, I'm an outdoor enthusiast and have been forever. I'm 6'4", fit, and have been a hunter since I was like 12. I know my environment, the wildlife, and the forest well, and am typically comfortable in the woods. I come from a military family and am trained in multiple forms of combat, armed and unarmed. I also have extensive firearms training, and as a result, am fairly confident in my ability to defend myself. I'm not really scared of people, big predators on the other hand, like bears, wolves, man-bear pig, whatever. I'm not a big fan of. This brings me to the weirdness. I'm 23 now, but at the time of the incident, I was 16. Even at 16, I was a decent hunter and had good common sense. I was at the cabin with my cousin and grandparents. It was the middle of summer, I think July, with hot temps and whatnot. My cousin and I were shooting at each other with airsoft guns. We had a full-on battle going on throughout the property, including the woods, which were my stalking grounds. I was wearing my BDUs, with face cover and all, as well as head-to-toe camo. Our battle ended up about 100 yards northwest of the cabin, into the woods. We ended the war on the main trail, and were standing and talking about the events that had just transpired. I was still on guard because I always am. I suppose I could be considered to be a tad paranoid. Alright, so we were standing there talking when I noticed something move at 12 o'clock, about 50 meters out. I got quiet and focused dead ahead, scanning. My cousin was still talking, so I'd whispered, shh, so he shut up. I figured the movement I had seen was just a bird or something, so as a joke and to freak him out, I told him we were being watched. That's when I noticed that the woods were dead quiet. No birds were chirping, there was no sound. That's when I started to think, this only happens when a big predator is around. So I started looking even closer. That's when I saw it. At my 12 o'clock, there was this large animal. It had reddish brown fur and almost blended in perfectly until I focused on it. It had long front limbs with what appeared to be formidable claws, and it was standing kind of slouched down against a tree, like it was trying to be stealthy. Even though it was standing like that, it was nearly as tall as me. The only reason why I saw it was because of its teeth. I think it was panting with its whitest teeth were visible. Its snout to be a tad elongated. I couldn't get a better look because my first thought was, we have to go. I even said it out loud. My cousin was already freaked. When I said those words, he bolted up the trail towards the cabin. He nearly left me in the dust because instead of running when he did, I waited a good 3 seconds. I was being protective of him, keeping my eye on it until I saw it move, and it was very fast. That's when I ran like hell. I didn't see which way it ran. All I know is that I heard it crashing through the woods. My cousin stopped at the shed, which was still 50 meters from the cabin, to wait for me. When I caught up, I yelled, "Go, go, go!" And we both bolted to the cabin. We got inside and shut the door. My grandma asked why we looked panicked and had slammed the door shut. I knew they wouldn't believe me, so I said we saw a bear. My cousin nodded. Later that night, after my grandparents went to sleep, we talked about it. I asked my cousin if he had seen it. He told me that he paused for a second to look back after he ran to see if I was running with him. He said that he had seen me still looking at it. He said that's when he saw it move and I run. He said he had mostly just seen a flash of fur. He went on to say he thought it wasn't the right color to be a bear. I also agreed that it wasn't the right color to be one, and told him that we only had black bears in the area, and that it wasn't built like a bear either. I told him I never thought it was a bear. He asked me why I lied about it to my grandparents. I told him they wouldn't have believed us. We've kept it between the two of us, until now. Still, the animal didn't match any known regional animal profiles in the area. I'm at a loss for what it may have been. I do know it was stalking us, though, and that it was built like an athletic predator, not like a bear. It wasn't as heavy set as a bear would have been. After the incident, neither of us would go into the woods on foot, alone, without a gun. We generally only went back in the woods on ATVs from that point forward. I always loved that cabin up until then. Fortunately, the cabin has been sold now. Yeah, so you're just playing with your cousin. You look over and you see a giant brown dogman that's been stalking you two.
Yeah, I mean, the beginning of the story kind of, I'm like, bullshit. You know, just because, like, he's I've been trained in every known martial art. I'm 6'2". Like, he's just over just like bragging about himself, and that kind of threw me off a little bit. I'm just like,
Yeah, we have Steven Seagal over here.
Yeah. He's just over here like, I'm a master at all martial arts. But, yeah. I
run around with his little airsoft gun.
I was 100 yards, but now I'm going to use meters. But, yeah. Okay, so I think that this one's probably fictional just because, like, the writing of it, but it could just also be, I'm just going to say, hypothetically, if this is a real one, then it just so happens to be from a narcissistic service member. But taking it face value seriously, this would be a pants shitting situation.
Oh yeah, that would be like really, really scary. But then I think the ending of that story is kind of funny. Fortunately, the cabin has been sold now. Now it's somebody else's problem.
Now it's like, don't tell them about the thing that's in the woods. But
yeah, look at this lovely little cabin. It's on the end. It's close to the lake. Don't worry about the giant werewolf in the woods.
Yeah. Just
look at this nice paint.
Yeah, and if you come back around here to the shed, like you see the guy who's showing the house just kind of like walks up ahead real fast, starts kicking some footprints covered up with leaves.
Pay no mind to the giant monster that's living nearby.
Big scratch on the side of a tree. And what's that over there? Oh, see, we have the Pilata woodpecker in the area, and
you look over 20 feet to the right, and there's just a mutilated deer carcass.
Oh, scavengers.
But yeah, I don't know what I would do in that situation if I saw a dogman at all.
Probably shit your pants and run.
Yeah, probably. So this story comes from Phantoms and Monsters. And this story takes place in Greene County, Pennsylvania. In 2002, just 2 weeks before Christmas, I decided to go coyote hunting by myself. I was having trouble sleeping. No one knew I had left, as it's around 11:30 p.m. No cell phones of any kind, which was a bad idea. I started my trek as always down a well-used trail until I reached a steep section covered with multiflora rose bushes. However, I had recently cut a path, and it wasn't hard to navigate, even in the snow that had been falling. I continued down the hill until reaching the large ravine that sets not too far from behind my house. Then moving to my left, I went about another 100 yards or so. To where the terrain planes out and you can cross a shallow stream. I crossed the stream and proceeded to walk up the long, snow-covered hillside trail. After reaching the top, I went into this action of setting up all my gear and finding a spot with a good backrest and nice firing lanes. My back rested against a large pile of crushed slate. My shotgun leveled across my knees. I quietly sat there, getting colder and colder as more snow covered by the minute. After 45 minutes to an hour, I decided to quit and pack everything up. This is when things got scary. I grabbed my red-filtered 1mm candle power field spotlight. When I turned it on, I saw it around 10 feet away, nose to the ground, in my direction on all fours. The light coming on didn't even startle or faze the creature. It's like it knew right where I was and knew the light would be on it at any second. It then took a step toward me and lifted up onto 2 legs. It didn't creak or crack when standing up. The only noise that I could note was a low, deep-sounding pop in the ribs sternum area. It stretched out and puffed its chest as if it wasn't big enough. I would have to say that it was at least 7 to 8 feet tall, with 5-fingered hands with 2-inch claws. This Dogman or Cryptid canine never did open its mouth, so I couldn't comment on its teeth. It took a step towards me as I had my shotgun already leveled. I fired a shot that hit it right in the mid-upper portion of its ribs. Mind you, that hitting something this close with a 12-gauge shotgun usually causes a major hole, and nothing would walk away from it. I was using number 2 shot, and the wad would have barely opened by the time it hit the creature. The shot let loose a mist blood in the red-tinged light of the spotting lamp. It let out a loud yelp, then tucked its ears and ran to my right. It made it out of the light in 2 strides. I fired 2 more times at it, but it was too quick and I missed. I got up and started walking in the direction it ran, forgetting momentarily to reload my shotgun. I walked for about 10 feet and found a large pool of blood, then walked a few more feet and found less blood. This process repeated until I was around 30 feet from where I initially started, and there's no blood to be, just footprints. As if this thing could quickly regenerate or something to heal itself with such a massive wound. I stopped and realized how stupid I was for going after this thing after it just got wounded. I didn't know if there may have been more of these creatures in the area or if they hunted in packs. I thought I just encountered a real-life werewolf. I then trudged home in the night with a sorely wounded God knows what, potentially circling me the whole way as I go. I took my time getting back. It took me 2 hours to walk what normally took me 20 to 30 minutes. I made it back home, went to bed, and never spoke of that night again until 2019. I hardly hunt anymore due to health problems, but even if I was healthy, going back out there, you would always be looking over your shoulder. However, I am working on getting a group of professional cryptid researchers to come take a look. That story is wild. So for people who don't know, coyotes are nocturnal. So when you go hunt them, you usually do it at night. But going out there without telling anybody during a
by
snowstorm,
yourself without making anybody else know that you're going out.
That's a really bad idea. But can you imagine like being there and he didn't even really hear this thing. So he just decided he was going to leave and he turned his light on and it was there. Like that is insane. Something that big and you didn't hear it.
Yeah. And the fact that you shot it and then proceeded just to like follow the blood trail for like a few yards.
I wouldn't have done that. If I shot the thing and it ran, my ass would be running to get away. I mean, he got lucky too. And what if instead of running off, what if the thing decided to go into like a rage mode and just charge him? The thing had 2-inch claws.
Yeah, go have a 5-finger discount on his life.
The thing would just take his head off. That is absolutely crazy to me to see something that close, only like 10 feet away.
Yeah, and then just proceed to shoot it, and then also hang around for, he said, 2 more hours. Because he said, that the walk home normally takes him 30 minutes, but it took him 2 hours.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's because he
stopped and looked every few feet.
Stopped, was like looking around, which, I mean, that's kind of fair. If you just saw something like that, I'd probably be keeping my head on a swivel too, which would slow you down. Yeah, but 2 hours, holy shit. Yeah. I mean, it was also during a snowstorm, so that probably slowed him down a little bit too. Or maybe not a storm, but it was snowing, so that would definitely slow you down. Yeah,
trudging for snow sucks, but I don't know if it's 2 hours of suck.
Either way, I just couldn't imagine seeing something like that. You know, just minding your business, hunting coyotes, and you look over, and there's a werewolf about to eat you.
Yeah, and It must have been like a really like overcast night, because if anybody who has been out at night during when it's, snow on the ground, everything's fairly well lit. So for it to be that pitch black out to where he didn't even see that thing that's pretty nuts. They even think this is a good night. I can go hunting.
Yeah. I mean, if it was snowing, I imagine it was still cloudy, so that probably obscures visibility a little bit. But if it wasn't, like if it's like a full moon night and there's snow on the ground, you can
see for yards and yards.
If it's a clear night, yeah, you don't even need a flashlight. You can just go.
Yeah, so who gets the bright idea? Yeah, okay. So it's overcast to the point where I can't even see that far in front of my face, even though there's the reflection of the snow on the ground, the light, the surroundings. And then not tell anybody you're going. On top of all that, it just seems like it's just dumb decision after dumb decision.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't well thought out. And I think the man was just incredibly lucky. Imagine if he decided like he wanted to wait another 5 minutes. He wouldn't have turned his light on, and it probably would have been right on top of him.
Yeah, he did.
He got turned into dog food.
Yeah. And we're not talking Purina.
So if we go to another part of the country, this story takes place near the Arizona, California, and Mexican border. So over to the southwest from the northeast. This story was shared to me probably a little over a year ago by a U.S. Border Patrol agent who obviously wanted to remain anonymous. Some of the stories he shared with me about working on the southern border were interesting, including some Bigfoot type encounters. But the first incident that he experienced was with a Dogman. This occurred when he was still training for his job. It really shook him because he had never seen anything like it before. So he drove around with a senior coworker, a field training officer. They were in their Ford truck driving around, showing him the checkpoints and hotspots where they usually find people illegally crossing the border. I believe he said he was working 10 or 12-hour shifts. One night, while he was still fairly new, he actually had a cold and wasn't feeling very well. They were traveling on a dirt road, which was part of their normal routine. They didn't see any signs of people, which they thought was a little odd, because he says he always sees trash, water bottles, or clothes or something out there. They got to the turnaround and flipped on their spotlights. They didn't really see anything, and as they're turning around, the headlights and the spotlights illuminated something in the distance. His training officer looked over and said, "Oh, that's probably just a wild animal. We should go take a look." They get closer, and I guess at this point the terrain got kind of rough, so he slowly drove forward. While observing this animal, they could tell that it had dark black fur, but they weren't sure what they were looking at. Maybe we should just leave it alone? He was really urging the training officer that they should get out of there. His response was, "No, we need to go check it out." Then it clicked with the training officer that something wasn't right. It looked like a bear hunched over while eating something. They got within 30 yards of it, a good distance, but still close enough that they could see what was going on. At this point, they flipped on another set of bright lights from the light bar on the cab roof. This creature lit up, then it stood up. He thought it was a giant man with a fur coat, but as it turned around, he noticed it had this dog's head, like a wolf's head. It was all black, and you could see the eyes. The eye shine was reflecting an amber tint. It was very muscular and had broad shoulders, and it was way too huge to be a dog or wolf. Then it stood up on its back legs. He immediately stopped the truck as they watched this upright canine looking at them. After several seconds, this Dogman eventually took a step towards them. Then it took another step, and it was close in distance. It wasn't walking fast, but its strides were so huge, and it was just getting closer and closer. As he threw the truck into reverse, the Dogman opens its mouth a little bit and hunched over like it was sizing up its prey. He quickly turned the truck around and drove away from the creature. He looked in the rear view, and he could still see the Dogman illuminated by the red rear lights. He said he'd never seen anything like that, and it scared the crap out of him. They directly drove back to the station. His training officer said it was just a big dog, but don't talk about it with anyone. They didn't mention it in their nightly report. Occasionally, you'll pick up migrants that will talk about the Lobos or the big hairy man and other strange stuff in the desert. So that's pretty interesting.
Just a big dude wearing a pimp coat eating some illegal alien.
Yeah. if it was like an actual, like, I feel like the accounts are a little bit more, I don't know, believable if it comes from someone that's
who's a trained observer.
Yeah. So, yeah, obviously people who are trained observers, like border agents or police officers or rangers or whoever, can still lie. Yeah, everyone can.
Yeah, or lie, embellish, or the story. Like this is like secondhand information. This isn't even from the agent himself directly.
Right. But I feel like it is more believable when you are a trained when it is coming from a trained observer, because they're used to like reporting on things. So I feel like they're going to remember more details.
Yeah, and they're not going to add or embellish like the first story. That seemed like a little meh, but this one seemed a little bit more like believable. They pulled up on it. They didn't do anything crazy with it. They didn't try shooting it. They didn't get an all-out, fight with the dang thing. They just kind of saw it and noped out of there and then said, don't tell anybody about this shit.
Yeah. You just saw a big dog. But don't tell anybody. If it's just a big dog, no one's going to care if you saw a big dog.
Right.
This is obviously something else.
Yeah, this one's a lot more, I would say, palatable for like the believability versus like a few that we have seen. Many of those like Dogman stories you can see on the internet, some of them are like clearly just like fan fiction, because some of the details are so just like meticulous that it seems like there's no way you remember all this stuff. You're saying like you're writing about this from like you're being 7 years old, or so this happened like 40 years ago and I saw this and this and this, and they have all these details. This gave you just like, for the most part, it seems like the facts of the story, general background information, but nothing like crazy.
Yeah. This was probably because it was a secondhand report, not a first-hand report. It's a little bit more bare bones, but it's still interesting. And at least it shows like how big of a range that these things are seen. It's not just in one area. They're all over.
Yeah, it's nationwide. It's not like the New England area of like, oh, it's a werewolf.
Yeah, I would say there is a lot more sightings in the Midwest. So Michigan and Wisconsin, those areas seem to have a lot, but they're all over.
Yeah, ranging all the way from, well, like this story, the border of Mexico, all the way up into like northern Alberta.
So it could happen to you anywhere.
Reminds me of those old commercials. Do you know where your kids are tonight? They're in the den with the Dogman.
Being gnawed on.
Yeah.
I think Dogman is definitely a very interesting paranormal phenomena or cryptid. I feel like you didn't used to hear about them so much. Like you heard about like Bigfoot.
Yeah, it's kind of blown up like the Skinwalker stories. It's so like, I don't know what you would say, like captivating or salacious, that like it's like everybody wants to have their own Dogman story. Everybody wants to put that out. So there's so many like stories that have blown up within like the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Like not quite as much as Skinwalkers, because that's all over the place, and like a lot of the writing on like some of those stories, like it doesn't even match to like the actual like Navajo folklore.
Yeah. I feel like they just definitely just blew up in popularity, like creepypastas and everything.
Yeah.
With Dogman, I feel like some of them people actually saw something. They couldn't explain it like by traditional means, or like maybe they actually saw like a werewolf. Some people are definitely just writing stories to share.
Yes, a lot of this is like creative writing. Like like they just wanted to write something scary, and they happen to be like, in the same field as us, and like keep listening to like multiple like scary podcasts. Like they might go jumping over into Dogman Encounters Radio, like they hear a nice couple stories. They think they could write one themselves.
Yeah.
That seems to be a lot of the ones you find.
Yeah.
You gotta really dig to find a nice one. It's like really believable.
I know for a fact that I really wouldn't want to run into the one though. Like,
oh hell no! I wouldn't. I'm not even sure if I would want to see a Bigfoot.
Yeah, that would be scary enough. But seeing something like a werewolf from Van Helsing, like, oof.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked, the movie Werewolf in London when I was a kid, but I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
Not in real life.
Seeing something on the screen is very different than seeing something in person in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, shit. I remember when, we were kids and we would be out in the woods playing, and if the woods went quiet, I mean, we were always into scary stories and cryptids, and we were always into that stuff. So every time the woods got quiet, I instantly got paranoid and was like, oh no. So if I actually saw that shit, I think my mind would just break.
Oh man. Yeah, I don't
oh no, it's real.
I don't know what I would have done besides run, but who knows how that would have went.
Yeah, right. Running from a predator.
Probably not the best thing, but neither of us is standing around.
Yeah, and the closest we have gotten to is walking up on a black bear. That was fun. Not. So comparing walking up on a black bear, that was scary as crap. So I could imagine, but that's something your mind can comprehend.
Yeah.
Seeing something that's nearly 9 foot tall, Dogman, lycanthrope.
Yeah, something that's 4 times the size of a black
I'm gonna leave it
bear.
at nah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a pass, homie.
For sure.
Now, who would win in a fight? Dogman or the Goat Man?
Now, that's a good question. In some stories, I've read the Goat Man has an axe. So.
That's what I was thinking.
But I don't know.
Also, he has a wicked headbutt.
I don't know. I still think Dogman would win in that fight. It'd probably. Just run up and grab the Goat Man by the horns or something and bite him.
Yeah, twist his head off.
I definitely think Dogman would win. All right, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Enter the Rift podcast. If you did enjoy it, please share it with your friends, anyone who you think may also like the show. Just wanted to thank you all for sticking around with us to this point. Have a good night.
Peace.